This week, WWE and UFC came together as TKO Group Holdings under the control of Endeavor, and with this merger, it's no secret that many have been left fearful for their jobs. This week, WWE CEO Nick Khan announced in an internal email to staff that workforce reductions will begin today and are part of an effort to evaluate existing operations and identify potential synergy. The email states that those whose roles have been impacted will be notified by the Human Resources team, who will share the details of their severance package. In an effort to ensure that these conversions are handled privately, WWE employees have been asked to work remotely today, and another company-wide email is expected once these layoffs have been finished. In his email, Khan expressed gratitude and admiration for all employees and acknowledged that WWE is a special place, making moments like this exceptionally difficult. All we know right now is that significant changes are expected on the horizon for WWE, and while employee layoffs are already confirmed, it has come to light that talent layoffs are also expected. Nick Hausman reports that major cuts are expected at WWE's main roster and NXT, and although it wasn't explicitly stated that these cuts will be immediate, they have been in the works for some time. One source suggested that Endeavor may decide to lay off employees soon, but delay the release of talent for a later date, perhaps to avoid too many firings at once, and therefore bad PR. With that said, it's been reported that one superstar may already be on his way out of WWE, as there are rumors that Dolph Ziggler is going to be leaving very soon. Ziggler's most recent WWE match was at a Raw Live event against JD McDonough, where the pair wrestled to a double countout in Albany, New York. Wade Keller of PW Torch reports that Ziggler asked for a break from the company and that he is on long leave, with some believing that this will be a break he does not come back from. Ziggler is still under contract, but has also done enough with WWE at this point where he can start to wind down and pursue other interests, possibly ones alongside his brother Ryan Nemeth in AEW. Another name not seen since May is Carlito, who made an appearance at the Backlash Premium Live event and reportedly re-signed with WWE several months ago. Since then, though, the former US champion has not been on TV, and there are reports that his return to TV could be jeopardized by these expected talent-related budget cuts. Drew McIntyre's future with WWE has also been under scrutiny by fans, but according to BWE, fans can expect the Scottish Warrior for years to come. They report that WWE agreed to changes requested by McIntyre to his contract, and that a final draft of the new deal has been sent to the former world champion and is expected to be signed soon. Details are scarce about the new deal, but it is said to be for an additional 2 years, keeping McIntyre with the promotion for a decent amount of time. With WWE and UFC being merged, one name fans may see back on TV is Ronda Rousey, despite her exit from the wrestling ring last month at SummerSlam. The belief among many is that if a deal can be reached, Rousey could have a match with current UFC fighter Holly Holm, someone Rousey has a lot of history with. After all, Holm was the first person to hand Rousey a loss in MMA, and the belief backstage is that a feud would be similar to the Cain Velasquez vs. Brock Lesnar encounter in late 2019, but what do you think of this idea? This match would also benefit Holm, who is in the twilight of her MMA career, and there could be even more integration with UFC, as there have been reports of a new era of title belts in WWE. The belief is that these new title belts could be more about weight classes, but if so, they won't be introduced until after WrestleMania 40. Speaking of next year's biggest event, the launch of TKO Group Holdings could result in major changes to how WWE does business with PLEs, as WWE wants to get cities bidding for big events. This has proved lucrative so far, with WWE being paid close to $3 million by Cardiff just to host Clash of the Castle, and that number isn't including the money made in ticket sales or merchandise. WWE's intent is for one day all 12 PLEs to be bidded on, but for now, WWE is hoping to get their Big Five, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble, and Money in the Bank, being bidded on. WWE has undergone a massive change, and many more changes are expected to come. And what do you think of what we've seen already? And what could we see soon under the era of TKO? These are clearly unprecedented times for WWE, its employees, and its superstars, and the fate of one superstar in particular is raising a lot of questions. According to BWE, WWE superstar Elias no longer has a professional contract with WWE after months of going unused, but there's some confusion as to what that means. While many have taken this as Elias being released, BWE, a proven WWE insider, explained that it instead means he can't wrestle for WWE right now, but remains with WWE for the time being. Despite being popular for a while with his Walk with Elias gimmick, WWE never fully pulled the trigger on Elias, nor did they with his brother Ezekiel, who's also been conspicuous by his absence. Elias's most recent match was as part of a battle royal on the May 15, 2023 Raw, which was won by Mustafa Ali, and he's not even been competing at live events. Elias may still be with WWE, but he won't be competing until a new professional contract with the company is signed, but who knows when that'll happen, if it ever does. But what do you think of this news? Do you agree that WWE dropped the ball with Elias? Let us know your views in the comments down below. Yesterday, we reported on Jade Cargill, who is said to be finishing up her tenure with AEW, and the belief in the All Elite company is that she's planning on moving to WWE. This sentiment is shared by many in WWE, with the belief that she'll wrap things up in AEW on this week's Rampage, but why exactly is she wanting to move? Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reports that Cargill had effectively finished up in All Elite Wrestling just hours before at the Rampage tapings in Cincinnati. There had been discussions about Cargill's deal over the summer during her hiatus from TV following her TBS title loss to Chris Statlander at Double or Nothing. Sources in WWE are of the belief that Cargill's AEW deal is a unique one and may be structured in a way that means she can sign with WWE imminently once she is officially out of AEW. Cargill's name is being spoken by top WWE superstars right now, and the company are interested in her coming in, and that talk about the former TBS champion started as early as last week. There was discussion of Cargill holding option years at AEW, but Fightful were not able to confirm that, and it's not entirely clear why she is looking to make the move to WWE. One source did tell Fightful that Jade's decision is not financially motivated, as she is earning plenty with AEW, and it was added that she has a team of representatives for her deals. Cargill and her MLB boyfriend Brandon Phillips don't need WWE's money, as they own a softball team, the Texas Smoke, who won a championship last season. That's actually the excuse she gave some AEW talent for leaving the company, but it has obviously since come out that she intends to jump ship to WWE. Jade Cargill was one of the most prominently featured female stars at AEW, but could be called a superstar soon enough, after this week's Rampage taping was seemingly her last AEW match. Billy Crotchson, who attended the show, said that after Cargill's match with Chris Statlander, the pair embraced and hugged, and Cargill was described as teary-eyed throughout the post-match spot. Cargill left the ring and walked to the back with manager Mark Sterling, and the taping then concluded with a best friends hug in the ring. This sort of post-match segment certainly seems like what would happen with a wrestler's final match in a company, further evidence that Cargill is indeed done with AEW. Cargill's arrival in WWE could also mark a massive change to the promotion, with recent online reports saying that WWE internally discussed introducing titles based on weight classes. One source indicated that this introduction would coincide with Cargill's arrival, and that the AEW star would be the first holder of a women's mid-card championship. The idea makes a lot of sense on paper, given Jade's impressive history with the AEW TBS championship, holding the title for 508 days before losing to Statlander in an impromptu match at Double or Nothing 2023. WWE has their eyes on Cargill, and she's not the only AEW name on the company's radar, as when a Twitter user reported that there is high interest in signing Ricky Starks when he's a free agent, BWE responded with a yes. It's worth remembering that Starks is very close friends with Cody Rhodes, who has been treated very well since coming to WWE, and Starks has been backstage in WWE before. It was back at the Royal Rumble event that Starks was backstage, arriving at the Alamo Dome with Cody mere hours before the American Nightmare would win the Men's Rumble match. Time will tell if Starks is a regular backstage as a WWE superstar, but knowing the resources both companies have, it may not be long until he has to make a very difficult decision about his future. Earlier this month, Matt Riddle once again made headlines for a situation outside the ring when he was involved in an incident at JFK Airport. While Riddle missed this week's Raw, that was actually due to a double ear infection and bout of bronchitis, and despite this, the original Bro will be back next week. Sources who spoke to PW Insider indicated that Riddle is slated for next week's Raw, and it was confirmed that he has been out with medical issues. Riddle will miss this weekend's live events, and while he is slated to return next week, it's been confirmed that WWE is still investigating the matter at JFK Airport. That matter saw Riddle accuse an officer at the airport of sexual assault, but sources at the scene have said that no such thing took place and that a heavily intoxicated Riddle caused a disturbance. It's interesting that WWE will allow Riddle back on TV during the investigation, and while plans could always change, expect the former US champion back on Raw next week. It was earlier this year that the Dyad, the NXT tag team of Rip Fowler and Jagger Reed, requested their releases from WWE, but their request was turned down. In August, the pair made it clear to WWE that they still intended to leave when their contracts expired, and that day has now come. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez stated that the pair are indeed gone and said that while he thought there'd be some kind of angle writing them off TV, they've instead just left programming. While the pair weren't written off of TV per se, this week's NXT included a segment that featured Joe Gacy and Ava, just the two of them, placing their hands on a tree together. Now it appears that the schism will continue with just Joe Gacy and Ava for now. In the end, that might work out for the best, given that the Dyad were clearly not happy with their roles in NXT. Now Reed and Fowler will be able to resume being the grizzled young veterans outside WWE, and we'll have to see what's next for the now former NXT superstars. As one of WWE's top superstars, you can usually find images of Brock Lesnar splattered across WWE merchandise and promotional material, but now a major change has impacted what images WWE can use. BWE reports that WWE can now no longer use photos or videos of Lesnar outside of WWE, which includes any images and video from his impressive stint with the UFC. It's certainly odd that this rule has come into effect now that WWE and UFC are more connected than ever before, but don't expect any pictures or video of Brock Lesnar that wasn't taken with a WWE camera. At Payback, Becky Lynch ended her feud with Trish Stratus in a steel cage, and at one point in the match, the WWE Hall of Famer used Victoria's Widow's Peak finisher. This was a very cool moment and an homage to a wrestler many fans feel has been overlooked over the years, and it certainly meant a lot to Victoria herself. During an episode of GAW TV alongside Mickie James and SoCal Val, Victoria revealed that Lynch DM'd her after the match, thanking Victoria for having a role in her cage match at Payback. Victoria said she teared up as she read the message and added that she's so proud to see Trish still doing incredibly well in the ring. Victoria added that people often think women get too old to wrestle, but that the likes of Trish and Mickie James are raising the bar as veterans, adding again that she's really proud. The former WWE diva and Impact Knockout said that Trish actually rang her to ask permission for the move, and Victoria was very happy to give the move to Stratus, even if Lynch kicked out. Victoria's last full run with WWE ended in 2009, though she did make a one-night return during the 2021 Royal Rumble, and perhaps the former women's champion has one final run left in her. Each year, Pro Wrestling Illustrated shares its rankings of the top 500 wrestlers in the world, and this year's rankings will leave you believing in the Shield. On Busted Open Radio, the top 10 was revealed from this year's list, with Seth Rollins taking the coveted number 1 spot, Roman Reigns in second place, and AEW's Jon Moxley taking the bronze. Cody Rhodes has received the number 10 spot, which has angered his sister Teal, who took to Twitter to say that someone at PWI has an issue with the Rhodes family, but she will take the high road and not say more. Teal later tweeted that her brother is the biggest attraction in wrestling and described the PWI 500 as a fanfic and would take issue with a fan stating Roman Reigns is number 1 by a gigantic margin. Teal said that when you combine all the metrics, Cody should be number 1, adding that being ranked number 10 is a joke, and also questioned why Will Ospreay didn't make the top 10 listing. It's worth pointing out that Rhodes missed a good chunk of the past 12 months due to his torn pec, but do you agree that the American Nightmare should be higher? Sound off in the comments below. As we previously reported, this week's Dynamite and Rampage taping had a ton of empty seats in what has been a recurring trend for AEW, and now a worrying metric has come to light. WrestleTix reports that this week's taping saw the second lowest attendance of any AEW event in the company's history, despite being aggressively promoted in recent Cincinnati Reds games. This low figure did not go unnoticed by Bully Ray, who, on Busted Open Radio, pointed out that there was once a time when arenas would be packed for episodes of Dynamite. With only 2,500 people this week in an arena designed to accommodate 15,000 spectators, Bully Ray couldn't help but argue that interest in AEW is dwindling, at least in the United States. This comes after it was revealed that AEW inflated the attendance of All In by close to 10,000 people, which Will Ospreay has been unhappy with given his tattoo of the inflated attendance, and laughed to his social media followers that it's the worst day of my life. With that said, he also said that the low attendance did not diminish what was an otherwise great show by the roster who built towards next week's AEW Grand Slam in Arthur Ashe Stadium. Still, Bully Ray raised questions about whether the audience perceives AEW as the cool show in town when they witness numerous empty seats in large venues, and at a time when WWE attendance is increasing, this is not a good look for Tony Khan. Somebody who's never shied away from speaking about AEW is Eric Bischoff, who has often criticized the company's direction as well as the management style of Tony Khan. While Bischoff has made some appearances for AEW, it's been a long time since he last showed up on Dynamite, and Eazy-E is in no hurry to go back. Speaking on his 83 Weeks podcast, Bischoff spoke about the current state of AEW and wants no part of taking a seat in the clown car. He explained, "I've been talking you through it for the last year and a half, and every time I do, it's like, oh, he's the old man screaming at the clouds. He's just fucking jealous because Tony won't hire him. First of all, I wouldn't take a job right now. Well, I won't say for any amount of money because look, we all know I'm a but realistically, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that clown car. And the reason for that is because there's a failure to recognize what's wrong. It's simple, it's story. It's simple, it's story, and it's legitimate story. Not what a wrestling fan thinks is a story, or unfortunately, what a lot of the talents in the ring referred to as a story. Just because you've wrestled in the past and have quote-unquote history doesn't mean you have a story." Bischoff defined a story as a well-defined arc with plot points that peak at certain points to great effect, something he clearly feels AEW isn't accomplishing right now, and said that WWE is doing it right. Bischoff added that, at least in his opinion, AEW hasn't been telling effective stories for close to 2 years now, timing which would coincide with the arrival of a certain best in the world. As to what AEW can do to turn things around, time will tell, but unless significant changes come, don't expect Bischoff to have any involvement in AEW, though we doubt Tony Khan will be asking. And we're ending with All In, a historic night for AEW, but it was not one that Jim Ross stayed for the entirety of, despite this being a tradition in pro wrestling. JR leaving early did cause something of a stir, and on his podcast, Ross defended himself, saying that the matches he was calling were done, and he wanted to truly watch the show. Rather than sit backstage staring at a small monitor, JR felt it'd be better to watch All In on pay-per-view from his hotel, truly experiencing AEW's production of the event, and given the historic nature of the show, we have to agree with the commentary legend.